खबरां दा लेखा जोखा विच आप सब दा स्वागत है।
Khabran Da Lekha Jokha, November 13, 2024 has been sponsored by Hanif Litigation. Any criminal or regulatory law matters, contact lawyer Shahid Hanif at 604-626-3144. Hanif Litigation. Mexican drug cartel linked group in Surrey raided by RCMP. 3 people have been arrested after federal RCMP investigation busted an alleged transnational organized crime group that Mounties believe to be connected to Mexican drug cartels. In a statement on Wednesday, the BC RCMP says the 3 men arrested are believed to be involved in the importation of cocaine into Canada. Investigators have also seized 23 firearms, several thousand rounds of ammunition, multi-kilos of illicit drugs and other items located at the criminals group's heavily fortified headquarters in Surrey, BC. Corporal Arsh Sayed explained. Sayed said the bust happened on September 23rd of this year when Mounties did a search of the house. 3 suspects were arrested at the time in relation to the alleged involvement in the drug trafficking. During the warrant execution, investigators discovered the residence to be surrounded by compound fencing, steel gates, and razor wires. The entry doors were fully covered by metal shutters, with the interior and exterior of the residence being equipped with video and audio monitoring systems, Sayed added. During the search, police found 23 firearms, including handguns, assault rifles, shotguns, silencers, and thousands of rounds of ammunition, fentanyl, meth, ketamine, and other opioids, and $15,000 in cash, along with what police describe as law enforcement issued apparel. The enforcement action was part of the RCMP Federal Policing Program Joint Responsibility of Protecting Canada's border from transnational organized crime, and in this case, preventing the importation of cocaine into Canada by organized crime groups associated to Mexican drug cartels, said Chief Superintendent Stephen Lee. Mounties add that the investigation is ongoing. Police are set to speak to the media today and provide more information.
ਸਰੀ ਵਿਖੇ ਸਤੰਬਰ ਮਹੀਨੇ ਦੀ 23 ਤਾਰੀਖ ਨੂੰ ਮਾਰੇ ਹੋਏ ਛਾਪੇ ਦੇ ਦੌਰਾਨ ਸਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਘਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਵੱਡੀ ਪੱਧਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਅਸਲਾ ਔਰ ਗੈਰ ਕਾਨੂੰਨੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਸ਼ੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਰਾਮਦ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਤੇ 3 ਬੰਦਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਰੈਸਟ ਵੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਸੰਬੰਧ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਮੈਕਸੀਕੋ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਟਲ ਗਰੁੱਪ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਲੱਗਦੇ ਨੇ। ਇਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਦੇਰ ਲੰਬੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਤੋਂ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਤਫਤੀਸ਼ ਆ ਉਹ RCMP ਅਧਿਕਾਰੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਹੇਠਾਂ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ, ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਛਾਪੇਮਾਰੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਗਈ ਔਰ ਛਾਪੇਮਾਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 3 ਵਿਅਕਤੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਗ੍ਰਿਫਤਾਰ ਵੀ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਔਰ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਹੋਰ ਵੀ ਅਗਾਊਂ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਧੇਰੀ ਜਾਣਕਾਰੀ ਨਸ਼ਰ ਕੀਤੀ ਜਾਏਗੀ।
Vancouver to open up more city-owned assets to corporate sponsorship. More corporate branding is coming to Vancouver after City Council decided to expand which city-owned assets can be renamed by private sponsors. City staff made a recommendation during Tuesday's council meeting to revoke the 2006 naming rights policy and the 2019 sponsorship policy and implement a new framework for both. The idea is one of 17 recommendations issued in January in order to tackle the annual funding gap in infrastructure funding and rising property taxes. Speaking today, Councillor Sarah Kirby-Young explained that the city has a lot of aging facilities as our city is getting older and people deserve good quality amenities. The proposal applies to a broader range of city-owned assets and programs including property, services, publications, vehicles and digital platforms to maximize revenue generation opportunities. At Council today, we supported a new sponsorship policy, and this is a recommendation that came from the Mayor's Budget Task Force. It is also a forward way of looking at helping to fund the significant infrastructure deficits that we have in the city without continuing to place undue burden on taxpayers, Kirby-Young explained. The city manager will be authorized to approve sponsorship agreements up to $3 million and a city manager designate will approve agreements up to $50,000. However, naming rights would be subject to approval by council and sponsorships won't be allowed for a number of things including public parks, libraries or street names. We will look at what opportunities will be of interest to sponsor as well as to the city, Kirby Young added. For example, we have the BMO Theatre in Olympics Village, so that would be one example of something public facing. It could be a theatre or it could be something like a recreational facility such as Skid Solano Pool, she said. It really is about identifying which assets make sense from the naming perspective for the city and for potential sponsors and supporters.
ਕੱਲ ਵੈਨਕੂਵਰ ਦੀ ਸਿਟੀ ਹਾਲ ਦੀ ਕਾਉਂਸਲ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 2006 ਤੇ 19 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਈਆਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਹਦਾਇਤਾਂ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੇ ਮੱਦੇ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਔਰ ਇਸ ਸਾਲ ਦੇ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਿਰ ਕੌਂਸਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਲਿਆਂਦਾ ਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਦੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਐਸੈਟਸ ਨੇ ਅਗਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਨਾਮਕਰਨ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਪਾਂਸਰ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਵੇ ਤਾਂ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਵਰਤਣ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਹੋਰ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵਧੇਰੀ ਧਨਰਾਸ਼ੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਮਿਲ ਸਕਦੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਇਸ ਤੇ ਬੜਾ ਡੂੰਘਾ ਵੀ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ ਔਰ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗਲੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਂ ਜਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਕੁਝ ਕੁ ਥਾਵਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਕਿਸੇ ਵੀ ਕਾਰਪੋਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਏਗਾ ਔਰ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਇਹ ਵੀ ਕਾਉਂਸਲਰਸ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼ਹਿਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਾਫੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਪੁਰਾਣਾ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਇਨਫਰਾਸਟ੍ਰਕਚਰ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਾਉਂਸਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਅਪਰੂਵ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਹੀ ਇਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨਾਮਕਰਨ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਜਾਣਗੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ 50,000 ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ $3 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਤੱਕ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਨਾਮਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਸਪਾਂਸਰਸ਼ਿਪ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਮੁਹੱਈਆ ਕਰਾਈ ਜਾਏਗੀ.
Former BC Premier John Horgan died at 65. Former British Columbia Premier and Ambassador to Germany John Horgan has died at the age of 65 after his third battle with cancer. According to a statement posted on social media by Hogan's former press secretary, the Hogan family says their hearts are broken to announce the passing of our beloved husband, father and friend John Horgan. The well-being of British Columbia and everyone in it was everything to him. He was surrounded by family, friends, and love in his final days. Ellie and the rest of the Jones family asked for privacy during this time. They said, "Live long and prosper." Horgan served as a BC's New Democrat premier for 5 years before stepping down in 2022, then was appointed ambassador last year. In June, Horgan announced he was on leave after being diagnosed with thyroid cancer. Horgan was remembered by those across the aisle and from around the country. On Tuesday, social media lit up with stories about Horgan and condolences to his family. His many accomplishments as premier will be felt for years and generations to come. His achievements are too numerous to mention, but he was consecutive premier at a critical time in our history. He encouraged all of us to strive to be our better selves, he continued. We share our sadness and grief with his beloved wife, Ellie, with whom he shared 45 years of adventure. It was not quite enough. Ellie is in our thoughts and prayers, as are his sons, Ivan and Nate, the rest of the family, and his many, many friends. The flag at the Parliament building will be lowered to half mast in honor of John Horgan, and opportunities for British Columbians to offer their condolences will be shared with the public. We will be working with John's family and the office at the protocol to announce the timing of services to mark the passing of John Horgan. EB spoke to media in the legislature building Tuesday afternoon, repeating his sentiments and calling Horgan a coach and mentor. He was accessible, he was fun and funny, and he was called Premier Dad, and rightly so for myself, said EB. He was an inspiration to me. He had advice when I needed it. He conducted himself with the utmost integrity, and he brought a spirit of fun to his work that was infectious. And many of us will remember too, he had a bit of a temper from time to time, and if you hadn't been yelled at by John Horgan, then you hadn't truly worked with him. I truly worked with John Horgan. The current MLA for Langford, Juan De Fuca, Ravi Parmar, said, that he has had big shoes to fill ever since he stepped into Horgan's former role. Parmar says he met Horgan when he was in grade 5 and Horgan has been a strong friend and mentor since then. He says right now he's thinking about Horgan's family, in particular the love of his life, Ellie, and his son. The MLA elected says he is very thankful for Horgan's incredible services that he provided to the people of Langford. He often reminded me from his experience as an MLA and as a premier that it's always about people. It's always about your neighbors, the people in your community, the people of British Columbia, he shared. Parmar says he believes Horgan was the best there ever will be. He is a remarkable man and one of a kind for me personally. I can't put into words how much his friendship has meant. Anytime that I needed a friend, he was there, someone to mentor me, and I'm going to miss him deeply. Speaking at the unrelated news conference on Tuesday morning, Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry said the news of Horgan's passing breaks my heart. I don't know what to say. I'm just grateful that he was able to make it home. I've been in touch with him on and off over the last little while. My thoughts are with Ellie and his sons and his family right now, she shared. Leader of the opposition and BC Conservative John Rustard shared that he is deeply saddened by the news of Horgan's death. John was not just a colleague in public service but a man of genuine warmth and integrity. Despite our political differences, I always held a deep respect for him as a person, Rustard explained. Throughout the years, I had the opportunity to interact with John on numerous occasions. His approachable nature and willingness to engage in open dialogue were qualities that I admired greatly. He had a way of making everyone feel heard regardless of their stance or background, he continued. John's dedication to his family and friends was evident to all who knew him. He carried himself with a humility and kindness and transcended the political arena. His sense of humor and affable personally made conversations with him enjoyable even when he stood on opposite sides of an issue. On behalf of the Conservative Party of British Columbia, I extend my heartfelt condolences to John's family, friends, and all who were touched by his life. Our thoughts are with you during this difficult time. John will be remembered not just for his role in politics but for the genuine and compassionate man he was. He will be greatly missed, and his legacy as a good man who cared deeply for others will live on. UBC political scientist Stuart Press said that Horgan's tenure is marked by both his contribution to BC and the province NDP. His time in office really presented a space for the province to move forward in an incremental way of a number of issues, Preset explained. Looking from the perspective of 2024, he represented a kind of style of politics which I think we see less of in a polarized environment, where he presented himself as just an authentic person that people resonated with him for across the political spectrum, he explained. I think his place in politics is no small measure was to provide that kind of bonding glue between what we now see as increasingly polarized sides of a political spectrum. While John Horgan unconventionally came to power with the Confidence and Supply Agreement in 2017, he became the province's longest-serving NDP leader. There is a sense that he really succeeded in the job because he didn't really seek out of the job in the way that many career politicians do, Preset explained. In the mid-2010s, after the NDP had suffered a series of losses, including the heartbreaking lesson in 2013, he put himself forward. He wasn't doing so as part of some kind of calculated political play. It was just doing what needed to be done when no one else was willing to step forward for the party, he continued. While there are frustrations about how the province and government of the time handled the COVID-19 pandemic, Prest says it's easy to lose sight of how much worse it could have been. I think looking back, we all remember that as a period of good governance, Prest said. He was able to find common cause with the then opposition, the BC Liberals, so that they endorsed many of the steps that the province was taking. He found a way to demonstrate that there was political oversight, but also a great deal of trust in the role of the experts that the government put in place to manage their response. Again, not doing something out of strong ideological stance, but because this is simply what was needed to be done.
BC ਦੇ ਸਾਬਕਾ ਮੁੱਖ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਜੌਨ ਹੌਰਗਨ 65 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਦੀ ਉਮਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਕਾਲ ਚਲਾਣਾ ਕਰ ਗਏ ਨੇ ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਮੌਤ ਦੀ ਖਬਰ ਤੋਂ ਉਪਰੰਤ ਹਰ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੈ ਉਸ ਨੂੰ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਾਰਨ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਨੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾਤਰ ਹੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਸੀ ਜਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਜਾਂਚ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਆਮ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਘੁਲ ਮਿਲ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੈ ਮੌਜੂਦਾ ਮੁੱਖ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਮੈਂਟਰ ਤੇ ਖੋਜ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਰਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਜ਼ਿਕਰ ਵਿਰੋਧੀ ਧਿਰ BC ਕੰਜ਼ਰਵੇਟਿਵ ਪਾਰਟੀ ਦੇ ਮੁਖੀ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਇਸ ਦੀ ਹੱਦ ਹੀ ਭਰੀ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਬੜਾ ਬਿਹਤਰੀਨ ਇਨਸਾਨ ਸੀ ਜਿਸ ਨੇ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੰਪੈਸ਼ਨੇਟ ਗਰਾਊਂਡ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਰਾਜਨੀਤਿਕ ਅਖਾੜੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਿਪਰੀਤ ਵਿਚਾਰਧਾਰਾ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਬਾਵਜੂਦ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੱਕ ਲਈ ਖੜਨਾ ਲੜਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਬੜਾ ਮਾਹਰ ਸੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੋਈ ਸ਼ੱਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਜੌਨ ਹੌਰਗਨ ਦੀ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਆਮ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜ ਕੇ ਉਸਦੇ ਮਨ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਝ ਲੈਣ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਕਲਾ ਸੀ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਸਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਹੌਟ ਟੈਂਪਰ ਦੀ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਪਰ 65 ਵਰ੍ਹਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਉਮਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 1991 ਤੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੋਇਆ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ ਰਾਜਨੀਤਿਕ ਅਖਾੜੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣਾ ਕੈਰੀਅਰ ਜੌਨ ਹੌਰਗਨ BC ਸੂਬੇ ਦੇ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਲੰਮਾ ਸਮਾਂ NDP ਦੇ ਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੁੱਖ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਰਹਿਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਨੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ 5 ਸਾਲ ਬਤੌਰ ਮੁੱਖ ਮੰਤਰੀ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਔਰ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਉਪਰੰਤ ਆਪਣੀ ਸਿਹਤ ਤੇ ਨਾ ਠੀਕ ਹੋਣ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ 2022 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੰਮਕਾਰ ਤੋਂ ਛੁੱਟੀ ਲੈ ਲਈ ਸੀ ਔਰ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਵਰੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਥਰੋਟ ਕੈਂਸਰ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਿਕਾਇਤ ਤੀਸਰੀ ਵਾਰ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਫਿਰ ਹੋਈ ਉਸ ਵਕਤ ਉਹ ਜਰਮਨੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਐਂਬੈਸਡਰ ਸਨ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਪਬਲਿਕ ਸਰਵਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੀਆਂ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਬਖੂਬੀ ਨਿਭਾਈਆਂ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਇਸੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਹੀ ਰਾਜਨੀਤਿਕ ਅਖਾੜੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਿਰੋਧੀ ਧਿਰ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਇਸ ਅਕੀਦੇ ਦੀ ਕਦਰ ਕਰਦਾ ਸੀ
Trump's appointees have criticized Trudeau, warned of border issues with Canada. Donald Trump's second administration is filling up with some of his most loyal supporters, and many of the people landing top jobs have been critical of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and security at Canada's border. One expert says there are not many Canadian allies so far in the president-elect's court. I don't see a whole lot of friends of Canada in there, said Van Hamson, a professor of international affairs at Charlestown University in Ottawa and co-chair of the expert group of Canada-US relations. As the Republican leader starts making crucial decisions about his administration, designations for foreign policy and border positions have sent signals to Canada and the rest of the world about America's path forward. Trump campaigned on imposing a minimum 10% across the board import tariff. A Canadian Chamber of Commerce report suggests that would shrink the Canadian economy, resulting in the around $30 billion per year in economic cost. The president-elect is also critical of giving aid to Ukraine in its war against Russian aggression and has attacked the United Nations. Both things are the Liberal government in Canada strongly backs. Trump tapped Mike Waltz to be national security advisor amid increasing geopolitical instability, saying in a statement Tuesday that Waltz will be a tremendous champion of our pursuit of peace through strength. Waltz, a three-term congressman from Florida, has repeatedly slammed Trudeau on social media, particularly for his handling of issues related to China. He also recently weighed in on the looming Canadian election, posting on X that Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was going to send Trudeau packing in 2025 and start digging Canada out of the progressive mess it's in. Like Trump, Waltz has been critical of NATO members that don't meet defense spending targets, something Canada is not doing and won't do for years. Trudeau promised to meet the target of spending the equivalent of 2% of the GDP on defense by 2032. Immigration and border security were a key focus on Republicans during the election, and numerous key appointees have their eyes to the north. It's been reported that Florida's Senator Marco Rubio, a vocal critic of China, is expected to be named Secretary of State. Rubio has pointed to concerns at the Canada-US border. He recently blasted Canada's move to accept Palestinian refugees, claiming terrorists and known criminals continue to stream across US land borders, including from Canada. Trump's choice of ambassador to the United Nations, New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, has also focused on the border with Canada. Stefanik, as a member of the Northern Border Security Caucus, called for Homeland Security to secure the border, claiming there had been an increase in human and drug trafficking. We must protect our children from these dangerous illegal immigrants who are pouring across our northern border in record numbers, she posted on X last month. Stefanik has little foreign policy experience, but Trump described her as a smart America First fighter. She repeatedly denounced the UN, saying the international organization is anti-Semitic for its criticism of Israel's bombardment of Gaza. U.S. media reports say longtime Trump loyalist Kristi Noem, South Dakota's governor, has been chosen to run Homeland Security. She was one of the shortlisted to be vice president until controversy erupted after an anecdote in her book about shooting a dog. She doesn't seem to have very warm feelings towards Canada, Hampson said. Last year, she claimed to be having conversation with a Canadian family-owned business looking to relocate to her state because COVID-19 pandemic restrictions. But Noem has also said that the Canada-US-Mexico agreement negotiated under the first Trump administration was a major win. The trilateral agreement is up for review in 2026. Robert Lighthizer, Trump's former trade representative, has been an informal advisor for the president-elect's transition, and Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland said they remain in contact. He has been touted by analysts as an optional for several jobs in Trump's second administration, including a return to the trade file, though Hampson said he is unlikely to go back to the trade representative role. Hampson said there are still significant questions about how sweeping the tariffs could be, and there will be crave-outs for industries like energy. Trump and his team may also hang the tariff threat over upcoming trade negotiations. Is he going to stick up with the tariff day? One or shortly after, Hampson asked. Some experts have called for Canada to remain calm and focus on opportunities rather than fears. Others have called for bold action and creative thinking. Canada revived a cabinet Committee on Canada-US relations a little more than 24 hours after Trump's win was secured. Trudeau said Tuesday in Fredericton that under the first Trump presidency, Canada successfully negotiated the trilateral trade deal by demonstrating that the country's interests and economies are aligned. This is going to continue to be the case, he said.
जो ही गुआंढी मुल्क अमरीका के नवे राष्ट्रपति डोनाल्ड ट्रंप बने ने ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉੱਚੇ ਤੇ ਜ਼ਰੂਰੀ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵਸ਼ਾਲੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅਹੁਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਸਥਾਪਤੀ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਐਲਾਨਨਾਮੇ ਹੋ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਜਾਂ ਕਨਸੂਆਂ ਨਿਕਲ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਉਸ ਨੇ ਬੜੀ ਚਰਚਾ ਛੇੜ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਖਾਸ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਡੋਨਾਲਡ ਟਰੰਪ ਹੋਰਾਂ ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਅਕੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਸਾਡੇ ਮੁਲਕ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਇਮੀਗ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਵਪਾਰਕ ਸਮਝੌਤੇ ਤੇ ਸਾਂਝਾਂ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵ ਪੈ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਚਰਚਾ ਛਿੜੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਪਰ ਇਧਰੋਂ ਨਾਲ ਦੀ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਇਹ ਵਿਸ਼ੇਸ਼ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਜ਼ਾਹਰਾ ਪ੍ਰਗਟਾਵਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਕਿ 2025 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਸਟਿਨ ਟਰੂਡੋ ਨੂੰ ਸਥਾਈ ਤੌਰ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਰੁਖਸਤੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਉਹ ਦੇਣੀ ਬਣਦੀ ਹੈ ਔਰ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਕੀ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦੀ ਨਵੀਂ ਐਡਮਿਨਿਸਟ੍ਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਕੀ ਦੋਸਤਾਨਾ ਰਹਿਣਗੇ ਜਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਹੱਕ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਭੁਗਤ ਸਕਣਗੇ ਜਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਚਰਚੇ ਆਮ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ
इसी के साथ हमें इजाजत दीजिएगा खबरां दा लेखा जोखा प्रोग्राम से until next time goodbye and be safe.